Stafford trade remains the top story, and it is percolating in Indy. The Rams have given Stafford's agent permission to speak to other teams about his market value. He's due to make $27 million on his current contract this coming year. Their head coach is Sean McVay. Listen to all the things he had to say yesterday about where this thing stands.
There's no dispute, and let's not get it twisted in regards to anybody wanting him to be our quarterback. Now, there's layers to it. We had something in mind, he had something in mind, and nobody was right or wrong. And then ultimately you're saying, hey, there's a ton of interest because this guy's an incredible player. He and I have had great dialogue throughout this process. I know where we wanted to be able to end up, but these decisions aren't made in a vacuum, and that's kind of the challenging part about it. But love this guy, and he's been incredible for us.
Okay, so my dear friend Nick Khan has a theory. He always says when someone asks you how you're doing, the longer it takes you to answer, the worse you're doing. Dan Graziano in Indianapolis. Those were a lot of words from Sean McVay, which suggests to me there's a lot going on. What are you hearing with your ear to the ground at the Combine?
Yeah, I mean, if things were rosy and Matthew Stafford was definitely going to be back with the Rams, it would have taken a lot less time for Sean McVay to say that, but that's not the case. He may be. It's entirely possible the Rams and Matthew Stafford reach a resolution on his contract that keeps him in Los Angeles. But to this point, they have not. And as you mentioned, there are other teams that have had permission to talk to Stafford and his agent for the last few weeks about what the contract would look like. And, you know, the Giants are one of those teams. I think, you know, there's been a couple that have checked in. So really we're at the point where Stafford knows what's out there in terms of a contract, and he has to decide whether he'd rather take whatever the Rams are offering or whether he'd rather go somewhere else and finish his career with a different team.
Tim Hasselbeck, I wrote down all of the different cliches. There's layers to this. No one's right or wrong. There's a ton of interest. Yeah. We've had great dialogue. These things don't happen in a vacuum. He said all of those things.
It makes me think that Matthew Stafford was like, all right, look, this is what I think that I should be getting paid. And the Rams were like, whoa, like we're far. Like we're far apart. Like that's kind of what I took from that. Is that it wasn't like this was close. It was like, you know, there's a canyon between what you think. Hey, go check and see if that value is real. Like go see if what you're saying, go find out if that's real. And what we may find out is that it's more real for Stafford than it is for the Rams.
What do you think of this, D. Wood?
I can't even believe that we're sitting here talking about Matthew Stafford not even being on the Rams. Bro, like, that dude has literally put that franchise on his back since he was traded to the Los Angeles Rams. And this is all about money. That's all this is about. This is about money. This whole notion of, well, why don't you go out there and test the market? Do you know how many desperate teams are out there looking for a quarterback that need one? The Pittsburgh still needs to move heaven and earth to get a quarterback. I don't want to hear anything about a Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. We've seen that. I don't want to see it running back anymore. Go get a legitimate quarterback that you can contend with within your own division. Yeah. Let's start there.
Right.
Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. How about we go get a Matthew Stafford and let's really see what the Pittsburgh Steelers can do?
Well, so Graziano, let's jump ahead to that because look, the Giants are the team we keep hearing about.
No.
And if I'm the Rams, I'm like, oh yeah, sure, Matt, go play for. Let me see him go sign to play in that weather behind that line. So I understand where they may be thinking of calling a bluff. What teams should we be expecting to be really aggressive here as this thing gets settled?
Yeah, I think the Giants are definitely interested. I think if that could work out for them, that's probably the way they would go. But you have to trade the Rams something too, right? And then so you talk about Pittsburgh, historically not a team that does a lot of trading, right? That is going to bring in a lot of big names from the outside at the expense of draft picks. So maybe a little more conservative. And then you have to pay Stafford, and you got a 37-year-old. How long is the contract going to be? That's kind of the crux of the issue with the Rams right now. So it's complicated. Those are two teams to watch. I think, Cleveland is probably sort of a team that would at least check in because they have quarterback issues to figure out, but they also have the second pick. I think it feels to me like if it's going to not be the Rams, the Giants feel like the most likely destination.
Yeah, and that can't be as attractive to Stafford. It just can't be. I mean, you said
That's a very kind way of putting it.
Well, I mean, it's just like I'm just being like, if you're 37 years old and it is about money, Damian, and it's always about money. Guys can say whatever the heck they want. It's always about the money. I don't care if you've made $300 million playing football. It's still going to be about the money. And so for Stafford, listen, making $40 million, $50 million playing for the Giants for a couple of years, like I don't think that's the answer for him. I really don't. Now, playing for somebody that can legitimately be a contender, I think is, and that's why Pittsburgh feels like it makes way more sense. But it's still going to be about the money because there's a level of respect, I think, that happens. Damian said it. Everyone has seen it. He's been an absolute warrior for the Rams, and he has changed. Like their bet on him won them a Super Bowl.
Right.
And so now all of a sudden you'll be like, all right, I'm making. I think it's less than Kirk Cousins will make.
Well, let me show you. I'm glad you mentioned that. Cindy, can we put up A49? Stafford is slated to be the 16th highest paid quarterback in the league next year.
That's a joke.
Here's a list of quarterbacks making more money than him without meaning to disrespect them. But Geno Smith, Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence, Derek Carr, all making considerably more money than he is scheduled.
I would be pissed too.
Yeah.
What Stafford has done, in his career, especially his time in Los Angeles, and you tell me this is what I'm making and all these other guys? What is Sean McVay and the Rams organization, what are they doing? Like, what are they thinking?
Well, he's thinking there's layers to this. Nobody is right or wrong.
Right.
That's why there's a ton of interest. But we've had great dialogue, and these things don't happen in a vacuum.
Yeah.
I mean, I just started writing it down. It literally was like a
all right
long
there.
meme of words. And I love Sean McVay. There's no one. If I had a team, he's the first person I'd want to hire to coach my team. But he's talking like a man who knows this thing could wind up going sideways. Graziano, meanwhile, there's a ton of other news where you are in Indianapolis. Let's run the hurry up. What are you hearing? Let's start with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, not a ton on Aaron Rodgers. First of all, people don't know for sure that he wants to continue playing, but he doesn't seem to be a hot topic here. I think he's probably, if you think about it, Greeny, he's probably in a bucket. And Tim made this point earlier in the week. I think he's in kind of a bucket of guys that might be like, hey, if things don't work out on our first choice, maybe we pivot to this group. 41 years old. And again, we still don't know for a fact that he wants to continue his career. So we'll see. That market could take a while to form. The Indianapolis Colts have Anthony Richardson heading into his third year, but their GM, Chris Ballard, said yesterday that they plan to bring in a veteran from the outside who would compete. He said it would be an open competition. So Anthony Richardson may have to fight for his job going into a critical season here. Year 3, he's had a hard time staying on the field, and the Colts want to see more. So the Colts will be in the veteran quarterback market, and who they bring in will say a lot about Anthony Richardson's future there. And D-Wood doesn't want to hear Justin Fields and Russell Wilson's names. So I'm going to say the Steelers are having some dialogue with some players that played for them this past year about the potential of returning and possibly playing quarterback. And their GM said they've had good dialogue yesterday with both of those guys in terms of their representatives, and if possible, they bring back one of them. I think at this point, Greeny, the most likely outcome is the Steelers do bring back Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, not both, and make whoever it is their starter for Week 1.
All right, so that's where things stand right now. We are just getting started.
Hello xin chào tất cả các bạn nha. Mình sẽ giới thiệu cho các bạn về kênh của mình và những video của mình cho các bạn biết được là kênh của mình làm video sáng tạo nội dung về chủ đề gì. Video của mình sẽ làm xuyên suốt về chủ đề cắt dán này. Mình sẽ cắt dán những sản phẩm như thế này cho các bạn xem. Còn đây là những sản phẩm mình đã hoàn thiện rồi. Sẽ giới thiệu sơ qua cho các bạn xem những sản phẩm của mình và cách của mình tạo ra những sản phẩm như thế nào. Và để tạo ra được những sản phẩm đa dạng màu sắc như thế này và như thế này thì mình sẽ cần những dụng cụ như sau. Những dụng cụ phụ bổ trợ như là đây là giấy thủ công màu này các bạn. Trước mặt bên tay phải của mình đây là giấy thủ công màu, nó có đa dạng những màu sắc. đa dạng những màu sắc để tạo ra những sản phẩm tuyệt đẹp cho các bạn xem. Đấy. Có giấy màu xanh dương này, giấy màu cam này các bạn này, giấy màu đỏ này, giấy màu vàng này, còn đây là giấy màu xanh lá cây. Đấy. Và trong quá trình tạo ra những sản phẩm của mình cần những sản phẩm, cần những dụng cụ như là bút dạ này, kéo cắt thì để dùng để cắt, bút dạ thì để dùng để tạo hình những sản phẩm. Còn đây là hồ dán các bạn ạ. Hồ dán thì mình sẽ dán những sản phẩm từ một chi tiết này sang chi tiết khác, từ màu sắc này sang màu sắc khác cho các bạn. Còn đây so của mình đây là chiếc chân kẹp điện thoại này. Chân kẹp điện thoại thì phải có điện thoại. Còn đây là đèn hỗ trợ ánh sáng của mình các bạn ạ. Đèn hỗ trợ ánh sáng để giúp cho video của mình sáng hơn, để cho các bạn xem đẹp hơn. Cái nồi của mình đây, lò chiên đây, máy in. Trước mặt của mình rất nhiều sản phẩm. Và kênh của mình thì cũng đã đạt được nút bạc của YouTube rồi các bạn này. Sau nhiều lần nỗ lực, nhiều năm nỗ lực của mình đã đạt được thành quả là chiếc nút bạc các bạn này. Đây là những sản phẩm tiêu biểu của mình thôi. Và mình đã làm rất nhiều sản phẩm rồi. Que kem này, que kem đẹp. Con cá này các bạn này, các bạn những sản